Hello, Empowered Woman. Welcome to this episode of the Empowered Woman podcast. Today, my friend, is Celebration Day, June 24th, 2022, as I'm recording and releasing this, the official anniversary of the Empowered Woman podcast. Can you believe it? 4 years. Wow. It's hard to even fathom this, honestly. This show is a testament of my tenacity. So many people give up on so many things, and podcasting, while a huge fad these days, is an easy thing to give up on, but this show has brought me so much goodness. I am just so grateful. So quick stats here before we get to today's episode. We've had so far 125,000 downloads. We've been listened to in 51 countries. 51. The top 5 being the US, Canada, Ireland, Antigua and Barbuda, amazing, and Germany. 245 episodes, over 100 guests. And during this time, I would have never been able to say this or to predict this. I mean, I hoped this, but when I started this in 2018, 4 years later, I've generated over 6 figures in income with my coaching business. I've got to do several TV segments. I've published a book. I've spoken for TEDx. I've met the most amazing people. But most importantly, I've learned so much about myself. I'm at a loss for words, really. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being out there so that I had an excuse to be talking on this microphone for 4 years. Wow. Thank you for your support, spoken and unspoken. Obviously, there are so many people out there who are being blessed by my work, more people than I could ever know. And it's in days like today that I get to take a step back and take it all in. So from my heart, Marta Spurk, to yours, thank you. So today I got to interview Jaclyn Gallo. She is a TEDx speaker, an author, and an in-demand life coach who focuses on courage, failure, and positive mindset. Perfect topics for to celebrate today. Through her own entrepreneurial journey, I love her story, and through her work, she teaches women how not to give up and find value in perceived failures. We had such a great conversation. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Empowered Woman podcast, the #1 show on personal growth, visibility, and profit for women entrepreneurs. If you're wanting to start believing in yourself, giving yourself permission to succeed, and let your voice be heard to make an impact in the world as an entrepreneur, this is the place for you. I am so glad that you're here. My name is Marta Spurk, and I'm your host, triplet mom, woman empowerment coach, and all things motivation extraordinaire. Welcome again, and let's dive into today's episode. Hi, Jaclyn. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hey, I'm excited to chat. But before we dive in, I like to encourage and remind our listeners to take notes, mental notes, written notes, and also share on social media, share the episode so more people can benefit from it, but also share their takeaways. So take a screenshot of the episode, tag me and Jaclyn. You're going to get all the info in the show notes. And let us know what about this episode was encouraging, inspiring to you, any ahas, whatever that came about that you would love to share with us, please do, because even though it's a lot of fun to talk to each other here, it's also nice to have the feedback from our listeners. So I would love that. Without further ado, Jaclyn, thank you so much for being here. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, well, thanks again for having me. I am a life coach, speaker, and author. My company, Clarity in Action Consulting, helps women create lives they love. So I'm really passionate about giving the opportunity to everyone, no matter what their background is or what their childhood was like or what their life currently looks like, to make a change and step into a life really that is by their own design, and giving them the tools to get there, whether that's mindset, action, strategy, kind of all of it comes together.
I love it so much. And I would love to hear some of the tools that you use with clients. But let's start with your story first, because I'm so grateful that you were able to join my Facebook group, the Empowered Woman Community, and share a little bit about your journey with entrepreneurship until getting to this point. Tell us more.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. So when I was 21, I was in the summer between my junior and senior year of college, and I landed my dream internship. So I thought I was going to do this internship, which was like corporate marketing. And then I would hopefully land a job in corporate marketing, maybe at the same company. And that's the vision that I have for my career. And I was on track to it. And in the internship, I actually liked it. I think most people are expecting me to say, it was awful. I could not go another day. I think mediocre is the really scary part for human beings. When something is really terrible, we'll move because pain motivates people more than moving towards pleasure. So, where I was in this place of kind of not fully thrilled with every day, but it wasn't so bad that I really felt a push to move. So I kind of just sat there for most of the summer. And then at the end of the summer, my intuition came through very loudly. And at first, I tried to push it down. So I remember specifically, it would come through when I was driving home from the internship because I had about 30, maybe 45 minutes with traffic commute. And I know that from lots of stories from clients and people who message me on Instagram and tell me these powerful stories of intuition. Usually we have powerful thoughts, whether you want to call it intuition or a breakthrough, when we're not distracted by technology, when we're not distracted by the day-to-day of our life. So when we're driving, when we're in the shower, obviously if you're meditating or doing a workout, journaling, those things. But often, we find ourselves in the car, in the shower multiple times throughout the day, or at least once a day in terms of your shower. So that's often when it comes through. And that's when it came through for me every day on that drive. I would find myself hearing almost like this voice in my head saying, you should start a business. That's really going to create the fulfillment you're seeking. And it's interesting because at the time, I really wasn't motivated by money. I felt really rich. I remember I was making $15 an hour at the internship, and I'm living at home with my parents. So I would go and I would spend my paychecks, and I'm like, this is great. I have so much money, more than I ever had in my life. So I wasn't motivated by that. What I was really motivated by was this feeling that I lacked of making progress towards my own goals, moving forward. It kind of felt like I was just doing busy work that didn't make progress and didn't have any meaning. And so I thought, well, if I have a business, I will make progress towards my business goals. And the work that I do, whatever it is, will help people, which was amazing. But then I didn't have any business ideas. So I knew I wanted to work for myself. And I wanted to do meaningful work, but I didn't have any ideas. It wasn't like the entrepreneurs that you see on Shark Tank where they have a great idea because they had this problem in their life and they solve it. I was the opposite. I just felt like I want to be an entrepreneur. So I would write down ideas in a notebook every day that month of August. And I decided that by the end of the month, when I moved back into college for my senior year, I was just going to pick an idea and run with it because I felt like I just have to start. I thought that the idea really didn't matter that much, which in hindsight, it definitely matters. But I think it's better to start than to not start.
Definitely.
So I'm so glad I just started because what it led to is it led me here. So my first idea was to make a product. It was these plates that encouraged healthy eating. I struggled with an eating disorder in college, and a huge part of it was like cutting out food groups, which led to binge eating. And so a big part of my eating disorder recovery was eating well-balanced meals. So the plate encouraged you to eat all the food groups in a healthy way. And I was really passionate about the impact of it, but I didn't really understand anything about the product business, about the problems with shipping, something fragile, storing inventory, costs, the whole thing. Yeah. And on top of this, it was a product that needed to be well explained, and it failed pretty quickly. I ordered $10,000 worth of inventory. I waitressed on campus my first semester and I saved up every penny. And then my parents lent me a little bit and I bought the inventory. Now the plates didn't sell. Now I'm in debt because I owe my parents the money I borrowed from them. And I had $10,000 worth of inventory in my grandmother's garage where I was storing my warehouse.
Oh, man.
And I thought, well, I better find a way to pick myself back up. Mm-hmm. The first failure was hard, but it wasn't the hardest because I felt like there's this messaging that society has come really a long way on where everyone fails. We hear that. Yeah. We start to believe one failure is normal. Right. It's part of the process. Mm-hmm. So I was okay to pick myself back up that time. But then I tried again. And this time with an app, I thought I'll take the concepts of these plates and I'll expand upon it. I'll include mental health, I'll include fitness, and I'll make it into an app. I raised $20,000 on Kickstarter to fund the app. And I launched the app to a group of college women who were really my target audience. And it was a complete disaster. The app was crashing in the middle of them using it. It had lots of bugs and lots of problems. My developer said, well, we've taken it as far as we can. And I either had to raise more money and find more developers or pivot again. And this failure was the harder one to get back up from, because I'm like, well, failing once is normal. Failing twice, maybe it's a sign that this isn't meant for me. Maybe I don't have what it takes. Maybe I'd be happier if I just had a job, right? Even though my desire, my true desire, this was like a soul calling, was to be an entrepreneur. But I just felt so helpless at this point. This was like 3 years into this process. I'm graduated college. I'm living at home with my parents. All my friends are starting to move out and do things in the world. And here I am, no money, even more debt at this point, feeling like just a complete failure. What am I going to do? And this is when I really leaned into personal development. I thought I might get a job. This was my mindset. I might get a job. I might give up. But if I do, I'm going to feel really bad because I'm going to bring me with me. And I had enough self-awareness to realize that, which I think is really beautiful because a lot of people don't.
Right.
Know that when you jump ship, when you change circumstances, you're always going to take you with you. Yeah. And so you need to change first before you change the external. So I decided to change me first. And I started reading all these books. I had never really fully dipped my foot into personal development. I had read a few books here and there, mostly in high school. Honestly, I've always been a very positive person, interested in that kind of thing, but I never immersed myself. And December 2018 was my month of immersion, full time, because I was working on my business full time, but my business had failed. I just read books, journaled. I just worked on myself. And by the end of that month, I realized that I wasn't going to give up. I saw a Facebook ad for a course teaching women how to become speakers. I felt so inspired. I reflected back on my journey and realized that speaking was actually a really great skill of mine. And I should probably just lean into the skills that I already have instead of trying to cultivate all these skills that I know nothing about. I knew nothing about tech. I knew nothing about building a product, but I knew about how to speak in front of an audience. In fact, I had given dozens of speeches. I didn't call them speeches. I called it marketing to market my app, right? And so I was already doing it. So I leaned fully into this. I went all in. I mean, what did I have to lose? I had nothing else, right? And I saw really quick success. I think this is a sign that you're in alignment when you've been failing a lot and trying a lot of things, and then something finally starts to stick. Yeah. I think that's a message from God or the universe that you are where you're meant to be. And I really took that to heart. So I went all in and I just let it unfold from there. It developed into life coaching, into having a membership for women where I help them with their personal development and writing more books. So I had already written my first book, which was about my struggle with binge eating. And I wrote my second book in 2019. As I started to see all of this success, I wrote about the things that I had to give up in order to create this success as an entrepreneur. So that book's called Stop Getting in Your Own Way. And I'm currently writing my third book, which is all about finding joy in the journey, which is kind of the next evolution of it all. So it's been quite a journey, lots of ups and downs. But what I learned the most from it is that your failures are guiding you. They're redirecting you to where you're meant to be. They have the most divine lessons in them. And as long as you don't give up, you will be able to bring your vision to life. It just might look a little different than you thought, but it's going to be better. It's always this or something better.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love this story so much. I always say this. I'm like a broken record, that I love having people on the show and listening to their stories, because it's just confirmation that success, whatever that means to anyone, is never linear and there's ups and downs. And it's just comforting to hear from other people that they've struggled. It just helps you not feel alone. And the fact that your journey included those 2 episodes and that you openly share, because most people have gone through similar situations, but they're not very outspoken about that because they feel ashamed. And the fact that you use that to then say, but look at me now, is just so inspirational. And a few things that you said that really struck a chord with me. You said so many amazing things, but first, it's easy to want to move out of a terrible situation. But when it's mediocre, you can just stay complacent and maybe assume that that's what life is about and just stay and settle into that. And I resonate with that so much because that is pretty much what I did in my life when I decided to leave my comfortable family and situation in Brazil to move to the United States into kind of like the unknown. And more, I'm going to celebrate our 12th year anniversary this year of our marriage. And more I'm looking back and realizing how crazy and how bold of a move that was. And I've been saying how I've been watching 90 Day Fiance and seeing like I didn't go through that process, but it was kind of similar in how everyone around always thinks those people are insane. And now I'm thinking I was insane, but I had to do that. I just felt that pull to get out of a situation that was comfortable, but that I knew I wanted more and I wanted to challenge myself. So props to you for doing that, because not everyone takes that first step. And that is one of the things that we should so celebrate, because oftentimes we feel like we should celebrate when something finally works, but it has to start with that step. You saying, that more and more people have been outspoken about the idea of failure. And you're right. That is great. This has been disseminated, but there's kind of like a missing link, like the next step to that, which is what you just shared, that it doesn't stop at the first failure. It's a continuous thing. And even once you found success in your business model and your message, there will be things that you will try that maybe won't resonate or that you will have to stop and course correct. Like it's a never ending journey and process. And for whatever reason, this image has been painted that there will come a point where everything will work out forever. But that is so freaking boring. Why do we aspire to that? We don't really want that. We think we want that, but we don't really, because we want to be challenged, right? And that's really the path of entrepreneurship, is coming up with new ideas, adapting to the market, adapting to the new situation in the world. And then finally, your realization that what you needed to do was change your thinking and change your habits and to change your identity, really, because that's where everything really begins, is start that journey from the inside out. And that's a lot of what I came to realize about myself too in my business, in trying different things, from starting with network marketing, realizing that's not what I wanted. And what's so funny is that in those moments is when I also had that glimpse of, I would much rather write books and travel around to speak. So I so resonate with you on that. And on that note, I know you've spoken for TEDx. That is such an amazing achievement and something that I finally was able to add to under my belt this year. So excited for you. Tell us more about it. What was the topic? When did that happen? And how was that process?
Yeah. So it was in 2020, which was a process. So I found out in January of 2020 that I had landed the talk. It was about courage, and it's called The Simple Steps to Build Courage.
Nice.
And it was late March. I don't remember the exact date that the real talk was supposed to be. Now, I'm prepping like a mad woman. As you know, with TEDx, you have a script and you have to memorize it. Now, I give tons of speeches like every single year, and I never, ever, ever use a script. I never read from a script. I don't believe in that as a public speaker. Even when I have a friend who tells me like, I'm giving a presentation at work, like, do you have tips? Like, no script. Outline the main points and just know the flow.
Yeah.
And share things that you know. Like if it's your story that you're sharing, or it's a project that you actually did, you don't need a script to know what to say. Because what happens when we read from a script, and I learned this the hard way, actually through a pitch contest when I was trying to raise money for my app, is you freeze when you forget a single word and you can't recover and you stumble. Yeah. I don't really stumble when I speak because I'm not trying to remember anything. Yeah. Sometimes I forget my train of thought and I just keep talking and I find my way back and the audience never knows. So with TEDx, when we had to memorize script, that was really hard for me. I I did not want to sit down and practice. My mom would be texting me because she knows that I don't like practicing my speeches. She'd be like, did you practice? Do you want to come present to me and dad? Like, let's see it. And so it was a big thing working up to it. And everyone in my family would listen to my talk. I would give it dinner. And around like March 7th, like that first week of March, my family started saying, your talk's going to get canceled. And I was like, you guys are negative. Like, the world will not shut down. Like, they will not stop a TED talk. You guys are so afraid, like, all this. And of course, we got an email maybe second week of March that they were postponing the event to the summer. So I felt relieved because I hadn't had my talk memorized yet. So I'm like, great, I can work on it in the summer. So summer gets close. We start memorizing it again, start telling family and friends again to get their tickets. Super excited to finally have an event in person. COVID seems to be, lessening. Obviously, there wasn't a vaccine yet, but there was warmth. And so it seemed like things were opening, outdoor events. I'm like, great. Well, about a month before we find out the event's going to be virtual. So this was challenging because I am so used to speaking to a live audience, and that is what I'm comfortable with. Talking into multiple giant cameras. I mean, I talk into a camera like my laptop, but it's not the same as talking to like a big camera in your face. So it was quite challenging, and what a great experience. It prepared me for my future. I definitely think I'm going to do more stuff on camera, right, in the future. And so I just feel like what a blessing that I had to grow in that way and get comfortable with the camera. And I had no choice, and I just did it. So it was great. And in the talk, I talk all about building courage and why courage was the thing that got me back up after that second failure, and how you can create that courage in yourself. So recommend, check it out. It's only 12 minutes. So it's a super short, easy listen. I would love to hear about your TEDx talk. What is it about?
Yeah. Well, mine is about the transformational power of defeat. So there's some courage on there too. So talking about different experiences that I believed were, that made me feel defeated, which I talk about immigrating from Brazil. I talk about learning I was having triplets, and then saying that those were actually opportunities for me to forgive, for me to empower myself, and for me to transform into a more self-accepting version of who I am. So now I'm excited to watch yours too, and I'll be sure to put it in the link. And something else I wanted to talk about, and it ties in beautifully here, is I resonate with what you said. I don't like memorizing things, and I don't really like practicing beforehand. I dread it because I'm such like spontaneous, shoot from the hip. I feel like things go more smoothly if I don't prepare, which is crazy to some people, but that is a very doer thing. And I know you took the quiz and you part as a doer too. But let me just backtrack a little bit, because I feel very fortunate that the TEDx, the group of people, or the curators for the one that I got selected for, they actually said that they run it a little bit differently, and they don't encourage people to memorize their talks. They actually have an outline, and you practice it. There are specific sentences and specific things that you want to make sure are there, but obviously the talk is never going to sound the same. And I was very grateful for that, because there were a couple people that was their second talk. And they had said, this feels so different because the other ones we had to memorize for the other people, for the other TEDx's that we did. So I was grateful to hear that. It was still stressful. I mean, come on. And that's one of the things that sometimes people come up to me and they're like, oh, you looked so nervous. It didn't seem so much, but because I know you seemed so nervous. And I was like, hey, listen, I speak, I love it, but it's such a different context because it's so short and there are specific things you need to have on there. And because it's recorded and it's out there and it's almost like a book. We want to edit your book to the best of your ability before you print it out and you put it out there. And it's kind of like that with TEDx. It's not like a Facebook Live that you can delete or a podcast episode that you can edit. Granted, they do edit the videos in case there's something major. I remember in my specific talk, the lights went out. Not in my talk, but the cohort. One of the guys that were presenting, the lights went out. He dropped his microphone. So they're able to edit all those things out. It's not going to come out in the video, but it's such a different context because it's a genre in itself of speaking, right? So it's different. You won't know until you do it.
For sure. And that's really cool that your organizers had a non-memorizing style. I thought that all TEDx were like required because we would get these like, PDFs with like rules. And
Right.
in my first script, we had to send our scripts, and they gave like comments. And in my first script, they said, you're asking too many questions to the audience. That's how I speak. I'm like, have you ever felt this? Do you ever do this? And they wanted more direct sentences, like things like that. So it was quite an interesting process. And obviously their process works. They have like life-changing talks. I mean, I can think of quite a few TEDx talks that have absolutely changed my life. So what they're doing is great. But for anyone listening who wants to give a TEDx, you just got to kind of throw yourself in the fire.
Yeah. And it's something that will help you with skills for something else. Just like what you said, the experience of it being virtual and the cameras, it's always preparing us for something else. And it's always some lessons that can be used for future. So I would love for you to let us know a little bit more about your thoughts on the quiz and landing as a doer. Because like I said, I believe that has a lot to do with being a doer, is that we don't get bogged down by the details. It's like, let me just go and do things. And that really ties in with your story of, I'm just going to start this. I don't have an idea, but I'm just going to start with something and then going all in. Like, that's such a doer thing.
Yeah, I definitely think being a doer is innate in me. Mm-hmm. I've talked a great deal to my parents about like the concept of nature versus nurture, because I have 2 older sisters and all 3 of us are very different. Mm-hmm. My parents said that I was the way I am now, just about as early as, humans start to show their personality. Yeah. So I think I was like 2 years old and my mom took me to the doctor. She thought something was wrong with my brain development because I wouldn't watch TV. Ooh. And the doctor's like, she's just really interested in other things. That's boring for her. Mm-hmm. And so I was just always very much, and as an adult, I don't watch TV that often. It's not because I think I'm better than people who watch it. I'm just, it's hard for me to sit down and watch something. I like movies because they have like a start and a finish, but like a series, the only series I'll watch is like Seinfeld because I think it's hilarious and it reminds me of my childhood and my dad always watching it. Mm-hmm. But I don't typically sit down and like binge a series unless it's like a docu-series or something I'm interested in. So anyways, I think it's innate and I think it has tons of pros and I think it has a good amount of cons as well. I'm sure all the personality types do. And so, I've struggled with burnout. I've struggled with spinning myself in too many directions. A really powerful book as a doer. So if you're listening and you're a doer, is The One Thing by Gary Keller. Ooh. It is the book that I read January 2019, just as I was transitioning to this new direction. Mm-hmm. And it's the reason that I went all in on just speaking. And then I built all the other legs of my business once The One Thing was sort of operating as a machine. And that really, really helped me as a doer because I wanted to go in 10 directions, but I was able to really get clear and focused and spend my time really on the needle movers. And so that was really powerful. And I still think about that concept a lot. So I would highly recommend that book. But I love being a doer. I mean, it's just who I am. And I think if you're listening, like whatever your personality type is, just embrace it. It's who you are and work with the strengths and be aware of the weaknesses and surround yourself maybe with people who have different personality types, like especially on your team as an entrepreneur so that you can complement each other. And that's what I think it's all about.
No, totally. And I love the book suggestion. I've heard of it. I haven't read it, but it really sounds like something that was written for doers because just so many ideas. Spread ourselves too thin, committing to all the things, don't know how to say yes because the FOMO's, or how to say no because the FOMO is so real in our brains all the time. So I love that. The focus is so important. And you mentioned that you work with clients in a membership. Tell us more about how you work with clients and then we'll get to our rapid fire questions. I'm excited.
Yeah. So I'm obsessed with personal development, as you could hear from my story. And something that I learned in my journey is that a lot of people, and myself included, just like dip their toes in to different things, which creates a very surface level knowledge, but it doesn't create embodiment. Mm-hmm. And if we just like know about a concept, if we can tell someone how to create a habit, but we don't actually create new habits, it doesn't really support us very much. I mean, knowledge is better than no knowledge, but embodiment is really the goal. And so I have really focused in my own development on learning how to embody. And I think it's a combination of education, of actually working through the mindset stuff in real time. So I do a lot of journaling. And and having other people too to like talk to about the different things that you're working on. So the membership was really my goal to like create a space for people to go deep in important concepts. So every month we have a theme, and in the theme we do a monthly masterclass. So that's when I'm teaching. We have live Q&A. So places that people get stuck, I can coach them on. Mm-hmm. And then we have weekly journal prompts where they can go deep in their own kind of processing to start embodying. We have a monthly happy hour, which just really supports, like we're all in this together. We do a book recommendation. So you can be a part of the book club if you want. You don't have to. It's like a no pressure thing. Just read the book. Some people share about like, oh my gosh, I love this chapter or this thing. And I give monthly affirmations to help rewire your brain. I'm a huge advocate for affirmations. I think they're an underused tool that people think because it's simple, it won't work. Right. And people have maybe experienced them not working for them because they don't understand how to use them. And so I teach about that. So yeah, it's just a really fun way to like go deep in personal development. And it's only $33 a month. So it's a pretty low investment for people to really like go all in on their personal development. So that's my main thing. I still do have one-on-one coaching, but I am like pretty full. I feel like I'm at like the max of my calls, and I don't know, how many more I can take on. So it's a fun like supply and demand thing, because I just, start to play with pricing and different things to kind of keep myself at the capacity I'm at. So the membership is really something that I can help tons and tons of people without that kind of time constraint.
I love it. Memberships are great. I've had mine for a couple of years now, and I think it's such a great way to build community and to help people at such a low investment. There's just so many benefits to it. I love it. Now, and I'll make sure and put all the links in the show notes so that people can go and check it out. So let's get to our rapid fire. I know you'll have some insightful things to say. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm so excited.
All right. So the very first one is notice yourself. What comes to mind?
See the good. Love yourself for who you are. You don't get to change you. Like you have one you, and you do get to change you in a lot of ways, right? Yeah. But who you are at your core, that's who you're going to be. And even your body. I mean, as a woman struggling with eating disorder, I've had lots of body image issues over the years, and it's just all about really like loving and accepting yourself. Mm-hmm. And from that place of loving and accepting yourself, only there can you change. We can't shame ourselves into a new behavior. So that's what I hear.
So good. Next one is listen to yourself.
I think that we ignore that intuition. We ignore that deeper part of us that knows the way. So the way that I see it, I'm very spiritual. I believe that we were given a compass inside of us, our intuition, which is the ultimate vision for our life. It's what we're meant to do in this world. It's how our path is meant to play out. It's like the best life we could possibly live. And that compass gives us the fastest path to get there. So it's this conversation of like free will versus determination. I went to Georgetown, so we took theology classes, and that was one of the conversations we had in one of my classes, which I found so interesting. And it was cool because it's a very like free thinking place. So we got to write our own papers on our own perspective of free will versus determinism, which basically just means as humans, if you have spiritual beliefs, do you believe that we have free will, or do you believe that our path and our fate and our destiny is predetermined? I believe it's both. I believe there's this vision. There's like a painted picture of where we can go, but not everyone gets there. We have to make the choices. Yes. We have free will. Yeah. So we have to make the choices to get there. And I believe that our intuition is the compass to get there. So the more you trust that, the more you listen to yourself, the faster you're going to be at that vision. And the cool part is I think that the feelings of joy, the feelings of fulfillment come not when we get there, but when we're following that compass. They come through the journey.
100%. I love it. Next one is forgive yourself.
Well, we're definitely too hard on ourselves. We're all doing our best, both ourselves and others. So the way I like to view myself and others is I am doing the best I can with the resources I have today, and others are doing the best they can with the resources they have today. And those resources are our thoughts and our belief system. They could be financial resources, time resources, right? And so you might feel frustrated at someone else for being short with you, or for saying, making a mean comment. Well, maybe that's the best that they can do from their own insecurities, right? That's where that's coming from. It has nothing to do with me. And for myself, it's really, really helpful because when I make decisions that maybe aren't the best, because I do, I think to myself, well, that was the best that I gave my best in that moment, given everything. And like, what else can I ask for?
Right.
Right. And I'm being given the tools to learn and grow and become a better version of me. So I have better beliefs. So I have more supportive resources in my world, and I'm working on those things. So
Definitely.
It's just really approaching yourself with love. And I think that people fear approaching themselves with love because they fear that they won't grow. Again, it's like approaching yourself with love is an opportunity to grow. It's not saying like, oh, I don't reflect on my failures. I reflect on them with love, knowing I did a great job and here are some ways I can improve in the future. It's just a different energy of self-talk, really.
100%. Next one is empower yourself.
To me, that says you're the creator of your own life, of your own reality. Take back your control. Whenever you feel like a victim, we all feel that way sometimes, myself included.
Yeah.
And you get to take back your control. You get to remind yourself, what am I in control of? I always start there and I say, in this situation, and I'm a big journaler, obviously. So I'll often take to my journal and I'll write down, in this situation, what am I in control of? And I'll just write down, okay, I'm in control of my thoughts. I'm in control of the way that I react. I'm in control of how I personally process these emotions that are coming up for me, right? I'm in control of what I say. And I will just start to take my power back bit by bit. I think that's something that's really important, is knowing that it's really difficult to go from all the way down here to all the way up here. It's a concept that I learned from Abraham Hicks, their emotional guidance scale. Basically, it's hard to jump from a low vibration to a high vibration. But what you can do is you can climb. Yes. So when you're feeling like a total victim, empower yourself is going to be about just starting with, okay, I'm in control of my thoughts. Yep. I'm in control of the way I show up. And then bit by bit, you'll start to climb and you'll feel in control of, wow, I'm in control of my entire future and I can make these changes in my life to create the things I want. And just take it one step at a time to get there.
Yes, one step at a time is how we do it. And last but not least, transform yourself.
Everything in your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. So if you want something to change on the outside, you change in here and it will change.
Yes.
So transform yourself in that way, because it gets to make you happier and it gets to change the circumstances too, which is like an added plus, because you already feel really good when you change what's in here. Yeah. You don't always need the circumstances to change, but when they do, it's a nice benefit.
100%. Oh, I love this so much. This was so fun. It was so nice to hear more about your story. Can't wait to go watch your TEDx. Thank you so much for joining us today. This was so fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be a part of this community.
So tell us how we can find you, and I'll put everything in the show notes that we talked about, plus what you're going to say now.
Yeah, love it. So the biggest social media platform that I hang out on is Instagram, and I am at Jaclyn _Gallo, Gallo. And my podcast is called Spark Your Light.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Jaclyn. This was amazing. And I hope lots of ladies will go and connect with you and learn more about personal growth and loving themselves.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for tuning in today, whether this was your first episode or one of many. Again, I appreciate your support in the last 4 years. I sure hope you connect with Jaclyn and also with me. Let me know your takeaways for this episode. Go on ahead, find me on social media, Marcia Spurk. Anywhere, shoot me an email at contact@marciaspurk.com. And yeah, I will see you next time. Bye.